Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. Good morning. Our title people are causing a ruckus. Hopefully everything goes well this morning. About 15-20 minutes ago, I had this all set up and ready to go, and then I got the blue screen of death, and everything just went. So I had to restart everything, and hopefully we're okay. Thanks for being here this morning. We're going to get started with our mortgage guys. Dan, do you want to come up and I'll hand you the mic here?
Talking to this one, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, good morning, everyone. Try to manage my hands here. Just wanted to talk about a couple things relating to gift funds. Sorry. A couple things relating to gift funds. So had a situation last week, didn't involve an agent in this office, but got a copy of the EMD, and it was actually written from the borrower's employer. And I reached out and said, what's going on with this? So ultimately, the buyer needed to transfer funds from an online savings account, which was going to take 3 days to post. So in the interim, he, quote, borrowed the money from his employer and was going to pay him back. So, yeah. So needless to say, it was $15,000 and, jumping through a lot of hoops, yada, 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 explaining that, any funds that come from anyone other than the borrowers are considered gift funds. And, just one of those things. I mean, I had his bank statements, he had the money, so never did I think at any time that there would be an issue, but that was the issue that occurred. So, just in relation, obviously, to EMDs, because I see more and more of this now where, somebody is writing a check other than the borrower, and it's okay if it is a bona fide gift and it's coming from someone that is an eligible donor. So that's okay. Often, you have parents or grandparents or siblings or whatever it may be are writing those EMD checks, and that's absolutely fine, but it is considered a gift, and then we have to, document that accordingly. The other thing I wanted to talk about in relation to gift funds is, there's often a misconception, when gift funds are an issue from a taxation purpose. And not that I am a tax professional or, an accountant or anything like that, but I do have this conversation with individuals, especially in situations in today's market where, if you're submitting an offer and you're wanting to guarantee your offer with, a certain dollar amount, and if maybe the borrower doesn't always have those funds, one of the solutions to bridge that gap is often gift funds. And, in some situations, there's misconception where, well, my mother or father is willing to cover that gap in gift funds, but they don't want to cover more than that $15,000 because of gift tax. So, again, this is information from the IRS directly. Every situation can be different, so I don't want to, be perceived as giving tax advice in any way, but it's just good information to know. So, the gift exclusion is $15,000 per person, per individual. And what the exclusion simply means is you don't have to report it to the IRS. So if you have, say, a married couple and they have a set of parents that are gifting funds. So mom can gift $15,000 to son, and dad can give $15,000 to daughter or daughter-in-law or whatever it may be. So ultimately, you could have $60,000 in gift funds and not need to report it to the IRS. If it's done individually like that. And if it ends up being over $15,000, the only thing that essentially needs to happen is you need to file a form with the IRS at the end of the tax year. And that goes towards what's called a lifetime exclusion. The lifetime gift exclusion in 2021 is $11.7 million. So, and that's, ultimately when tax liability would kick in. Now, I've worked with maybe one or two clients in 18 years that would, probably fall into that window, but the average clients we're working with most days that are talking about gift funds are probably never, ever going to exceed that $11.7 million. So I think that's important when you're having conversations with buyers, because again, when you're talking about filling in gaps with appraisals and, short appraisals and offers over list and so on and so forth, there's always that fear with the gift funds that, there's a tax liability involved if it does end up being over $15,000. So just wanted to point that information out. If you have any questions specifically, obviously you can reach out to either James or myself, and that's all I have.
Thank you. And Sarah, you want to come up and just grab the mic?
See, I didn't have any donuts, so there's no like icing or anything on here. So.
Good morning. So I want to talk about two different things. One, on out of county, we do settlements out of county. I'm not sure if everybody realizes that. But if you have a listing out of county, this gets brought up a lot. The sellers are responsible to get the deed prepared. A lot of Lancaster County agents don't realize that. So if they go and they list something in Dauphin or Lebanon, the buyer's agent is going to come to you and say, we need a deed prepared. Can you get it done? You can come to us. We will help take care of that for you or your client. But just a reminder, because a lot of you are venturing outside of Lancaster lately to get things for your client. So just keep that in mind. My other thing I want to talk about are addendums. If you have a non-borrowing spouse, meaning somebody who is not taking the loan, and you want them to be on title, I know we've talked about this before, but we need an addendum. They must be on the agreement of sale. So let's say Carol and I are married and we're buying a property and she's the only one who has finances. If she's the only person on the agreement, she's the only person that will be on the deed. The deed and the agreement of sale must match. So if she wants me to be on because we're married, we need an addendum or we need that party listed from the beginning. They might not be on the mortgage paperwork, which is fine, but the deed and the agreement must match. So I want to bring that up as we get into, creative financing and doing whatever you need to do for your clients or people buying and then having a spouse come in later. Just make sure whoever is on the deed is also on your agreement. That's all I got.
Before I get James up here, I have a comment on this. One comment that I'll make on this is I have gotten probably over the last 2 to 3 weeks, people coming to me and saying, well, I'd like to add somebody to the agreement of sale. And what are the ramifications of that? If they're on the deed, on the mortgage, and they're asking me for legal advice. That's not our job. Please, if people are asking you as to what this means if a person's on a deed or a mortgage, and make sure you point them in the direction of an attorney. We are not the individuals to give them advice regarding that. So thanks for bringing that up. James.
Okay. Good morning. I just got a quick story that I saw on the news about solar panels, and this was in East Donegal Township, actually. I don't know if you guys, sounds like somebody's seen it at least. So, but there was this couple in East Donegal there. They were trying to get some solar panels on their roof, and the township came out. They issued a cease and desist order saying that there were structural issues with the roof. And then it was later determined that the changes were unnecessary after the township went out and inspected it. And then they found out after that was addressed on the inspection that the power grid was not up to code. So the company that actually installed these panels as well, too, they had one of their own inspectors come out, and it said that there were 4 violations of the National Electrical Code as well, too. So then this customer had problems getting everything corrected and reaching the company that came out to install the panels. I think there was 20 some panels on there, if I remember right. So somehow there was no cost to this to the customer yet. And, what the customer said as well too. Anybody else is thinking about this, make sure you talk to your township. Make sure you know what building codes and what's expected to go into your house as well too, because it sounds like this was a major pain just to get this installed on their end, basically. And you know, the thing to remember as well too, solar panels are part of the structure. So that's something that I do have to consider when I calculate the replacement cost of a home as well too. So do your homework if you're thinking about that basically. So.
Bless you. And the comment was solar panels cloud title.
Yep, you gotta deal with them. They'll be basic, they'll be finance. They'll be put on public record as a UCC financing statement.
Mhm.
So that means it has to be dealt with. Either you need to get your borrower to sign an agreement to take over the current solar panel agreement the seller has put in place, or the seller needs to pay it off in full and get them removed off the property.
Okay, for those of you on Zoom who didn't hear that, basically what Sarah said is be very, very careful with solar panels. It can cloud title, and please see Sarah or James if you have a client that's interested in doing this. So a word to the wise, everyone. Thank you. I wanted to point this out. This just hit this past week. U.S. News and World Report came out with their top 150 cities across the country. And there were 8 cities in Pennsylvania that made the list. Lancaster is number 74. I do have a link here. If you go to this link and scroll down, you have to scroll down a while to get to number 74. There's a lot of really, really good information on Lancaster there. So you can use that link to give to your clients, especially out-of-town clients who aren't familiar with this and want to get more information on Lancaster County. Some really, really good information there. So make sure you're aware of this. Keep this link. This comes out once a year, and I just thought I'd share it with everybody. Payload Keybox. So we talked about this last week. If you could take one and pass it on. And for those of you on Zoom, I'm handing out a user guide to Payload Keybox. I will include a copy of this with the notes when I send out the video. But I'm getting lots of questions on this because people heard it at the last meeting that we had. And the very first question is, boy, this sounds really great. Where do I find this? So it's really some really basic stuff, and Colleen's up front here laughing. So I'm going to deal with some, and this is kind of like in a Q&A format, from really basic questions to some questions that I've gotten from people about how to utilize this. So what is Payload Keybox? This is another alternative for earnest money deposits. And by the way, this is not the only way that you have to handle an earnest money deposit. This is just another option. So you can use the old-fashioned, let's write out a check and let's drive over to the other office and drop it off. Or, and please don't be old-fashioned and pop it in the mail, because the mail system as of late has really been a problem. Or you can get wiring instructions from myself or Colleen. We'd be happy to provide them for you. Or you can use this service. Once again, it's called Payload Keybox. The advantage of this is it is much, much quicker, not only to get the money over to us as the listing agency, but once it's in our account, it's 1 day until it's valid. Versus if you drop off a check, or if another agent drops off a check to us, sometimes it takes 7 to 10 days to clear. So it's much quicker. We are aware that the transaction is going through much quicker than if you actually hand over a hard copy of a check. So where do you find this? You will see it is in Homesale Center. Really, all you have to do is access Homesale Center. I have a graphic there. And then all the way down at the bottom, there's a place called Other Resources. Once you get to Other Resources, there's a green box that says Earnest Money Deposit. That's all you got to do. Once you get in there, the next page talks about the screen and shows you the screen. You got to fill it in. You can't let anything blank. So make sure it's in there. The one thing I caution people on, just like with dot loop, because occasionally I get the same thing with dot loop, is people say, well, the earnest money deposit didn't go through. Or I hear from people, well, you know, I sent that agreement over to so-and-so a while back and they never got it. And the first thing I always ask people is, did you put the correct email address in? And once they go back and check the email address, they're off by a letter or a number. So if the email address is not correct, we're not going to get the earnest money deposit. So make sure the buyer is aware of that. And by the way, once you get into the Payload Keybox area itself, just copy the URL, and send it off to the buyer. That's all you need to do, or the buyer's agent, if you want to do that. Now, you will see, and it's a little confusing, we have different accounts at our company for different offices. And apparently, I didn't know this, but Quarryville and North Point are the same earnest, or the same account. So if you copy this link, you're going to see it says earnest money deposit for North Point and Quarryville. No, it's not being sent off to Colleen. It's just an account that we're both on. So I wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that also. If you go to the third page here, I'm getting questions from people about what's a routing number. Now, I'm not a banker, but I will say I just made a copy of a check here. The routing number is on the bottom of the check, and it shows you exactly what the routing number is. It's usually the first series of numbers next to the actual account number. All right. And then I have some other questions at the bottom. I had a question this past week about, is this mobile compatible? Yes, you can do this on your mobile device if you want to, or a buyer can use it on their mobile device. And another question was, suppose the transaction falls apart, what happens is we are now going to start utilizing this service to send the deposits back to the individuals through, and once again, it's back in their account within 1 day versus having to cut a check. And, you know, there's a hard copy that's given to people, and sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days to get over here to North Point, and then another couple days to get to people. So it's a very convenient service. I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of it. And clarification, Nancy, and then Bob. Go ahead.
I see that there's a $10 fee to use this service. So when you're saying a deposit comes back, who gets charged that?
Yeah, the question is, there's a $10, Nancy noticed that there's a $10 fee on the screen. The $10 fee is charged to the buyer. Just like wiring instructions, there's $10 fee, people use wiring instructions. That is charged to the buyer also. Yes, okay, Bob.
With a settlement that's within 30 days, typically we had to get a certified check. Can we use this instead?
The question is, suppose we have a really quick settlement. The agreement of sale reads that you have to have, you know, if you have a check to us in less than 30 days, it's got to be certified funds. The agreement of sale doesn't change. So not everybody has this service, so I'm sure they're going to keep the standard agreement of sale language in there. Is it going to make things easier? Yes, I think it will speed that up. However, not everybody's aware of what Payload Keybox is from outside of our company. So they may require this anyway. So, but it will definitely speed things up. Okay. I also wanted to handle this. A number of people, and I get these all the time here at this office, all office managers get notifications when you get fined. It's just the way it is. Colleen gets them, I get them, every manager gets them. I would not want to be Gary Schlechtich. Gary gets every fine notice for every office in Pennsylvania. I'm sure he just loves getting those notices. It's bad enough at North Point, which is a large office, but he gets them for the entire state of Pennsylvania. So I'm getting a lot of things, and typically when an agent gets this notice, the very first thing that I do is I get a call from or an email that says, I didn't know I could do that, or I couldn't do this. So I thought it would behoove everybody to just review some of the ones that I'm seeing most often with all these fines, and also to describe to you the process in which you can protest this or try to get relief from this. So let's deal with and by the way, there's different level of violations. And the higher the level of violations you get into, the larger the fine is. Excuse me. So here are level 1 violations. Usually these are fairly simple data things. And you see there, the first violation is $100, second violation is $200, third violation is $350. Well, here are some of the things that fall under level 1 violations. Failure to disclose an owner-agent interest in a property. So if it's your property, you need to disclose. That's a state law anyway, okay? Failure to report correct selling office or agent on closed listing. Inappropriate directions information. I know in the previous MLS, a lot of people would put in the directions area, see GPS. That's a no-no. You can't say see GPS or use your GPS. You actually have to have directions spelled out, okay? That one I'm getting a lot of, okay? Incorrect listing data such as bedrooms, garage, square footage, property type. Most of these are coming from the tax records that they are pulling up, and it says in the tax records it's 3 bedrooms, and you're saying when you get out and physically looked at the property, it's 4 bedrooms. Well, 2 things come to mind. Number one, the very first thing I always think of is, I wonder if the seller pulled a building permit, because that would account for the bedrooms being off or some other thing being off. But you do have situations where our municipal government officials are sometimes wrong. And you've got to point that out. Now, you have to physically send things to Bright. I remember when one of the first cases I dealt with here, an agent in this office said, I'm dealing with a 4-bedroom bi-level. And it had in the tax records 3 bedrooms. So the agent had to send 4 pictures of 4 different bedrooms in this, and that cleared up the issue, all right? But that's what you're gonna have to do, or else you're gonna get the fine, okay? By the way, some of these are immediate, as some of you have found out. Some of them, they give you a warning, and they keep changing. Hard to believe. Level 2 violations. These get a little more serious. First violation is $250, then $500, then $750. Here are some things for level 2 violations. And by the way, most of these are immediate fines. There's no warning on. If you have a listing that is input late, I got to tell you, almost on a weekly basis, I have Janice come to me and say, hey, I just got a listing from, I'll pick on Colleen. I just got this listing from Colleen. It's dated last week. What should I do? Janice can't change the date. When she puts it into the MLS, it's put in today's date. So she can't fudge the date for you. So be aware that if you're taking a listing, it's got to get in a specified period of time. Okay, bless you. She gets that one a lot. Branded virtual tours. Can't have that little logo at the bottom, or you can't have your company name or anything. It's got to be a generic brand or a generic virtual tour. Inappropriate or branded photos, the same type of thing. Cooperative compensation based on net sales. I think everybody's aware of this. In our previous MLS, you could do net listings and base the commission on the net amount, which was the sale price minus seller assist. Can't do that in Bright. Can't do it in Bright. Delinquent settlement date, incorrect listing status. or showing status. And the things we're getting on showing status, and I'm getting a lot of this from Janice, is she's saying, hey, I just got a listing. Colleen's notorious for screwing everything up. Just got a listing from Colleen, and she says there's no showings for 3 weeks. That's a problem. Bright's going to flag that. You know, if in fact you have a situation like this, make sure that you are doing coming soon or an exclusive listing versus no showings for 3 weeks, because they're going to flag that.
What's a delinquent settlement?
It is now, what's today's date? July 27th. And in the MLS, it says it was supposed to settle on July 23rd. So you're already 4 days beyond what the delinquent, or excuse me, you're 4 days beyond what the settlement date was indicated when it was input into Bright initially.
Okay, so if we extend settlement date.
You're fine.
But it has to go in.
You have to change it. Yeah. So Nancy Sarli is now afraid that she is going to be fined. So once again, her question is, what's a delinquent settlement date? And that's when you have something that you input into Bright initially, and now you're beyond that date. So make sure you're keeping things up to date in Bright. Here are some other, these are having to do with public remarks. We're getting a lot of this where they are actually, the Bright is actually scanning the public remarks for some of this information. If you have showing contacts in there, contact the tenant, contact Colleen, the tenant, that can't go in public remarks for the showing. Agent broker information is in there. You can't have, contact Tom Blefko for more information. That's a no-no. Contact information such as email addresses or phone numbers, you can't have that in public remarks. Website addresses, there's a lot of people that are putting in virtual tour web addresses, things like that. That's a no-no. You can't put that in public remarks. Promotional information, that's a no-no. Commission arrangements, alarm codes or lockbox codes. Why anybody would put codes in public remarks is beyond me, but it's being done. So you ought to get a double slap on the wrist for that one. So violation number 3 starts out at 500, then goes to 750, then 950. And basically the one that happens most often, and I haven't had it in this office or anybody that I know in Berkshire Hathaway at this point in time, but I have seen these in other offices. If you are sharing your MLS credentials with somebody that is not a subscriber to Bright, that is a huge no-no, okay? So don't get caught up with that. You have a client who says, oh, can I just, can you get me into the MLS? No, you can't get into the MLS, okay? And then the off MLS policy. These are huge ones. These are immediate fines. You see the very first one is $5,000, then $7,500. Then the third violation is a termination of your subscription, okay? So off MLS basically is if you have an exclusive listing to the company and you've just screwed it up. If you're looking for the number of days and things like that you are allowed coming soon versus office exclusive, I'm not going to get into it here, but either come and talk to Colleen, talk to myself. Janice is an expert on this stuff. Trust me, she corrects me sometimes. She is an expert on this stuff. So just talk with her about what you can and can't do as far as getting things into the MLS. And as I said, this I know is an immediate find, so you don't want to screw around with this one, okay? So over the last couple of meetings, I've shared with you some information about things that I have seen and read about the potential bubble that we're in. And I see a lot of stuff on the news, on internet websites saying this whole thing is going to blow up. And I keep looking at this thing, I don't think so. There's so much data out there. I just found some more data. There's so much data out there that points to this not being a bubble. Now, are we in a market where things are just going through the roof? Absolutely. Now, that's being tamped down a bit over the last couple of weeks. but we're still in a fast moving market. Here's some information that I wanted to share with you that once again, I just saw. Here's the volume of risky mortgage loans in 2006. We can blame this on James and Dan. They took those risky loans back in 2006. All right. So there were 376 billion loans, or $376 billion worth of loans taken in 2006 with a FICO score of less than 620. This is what it is today, 74 billion. So we're far from taking some really risky stuff at this point in time. Another one, Mortgage Credit Availability Index. This is put out by the Mortgage Bankers Association. And you see from 2004 to 2006, this really, really rapidly changed. The higher the index, the easier it is to obtain a mortgage. So as you see in 2006, if Brian could fog up that window on the door, he got a mortgage. As long as he didn't fall into the door, he'd be okay. All right. But in 2021, this is where the index is. We're at 130. We're nowhere near where we were in the bubble. Okay. Next one, cash out refinances. And by the way, I should point out, I don't want to assume our guys do refinances. I know they do. You know, we constantly look to them for our first mortgages when people are buying homes. But if you have people that want to refinance, please see Dan or James. They can help you out. But back in 2006, 89% of all the loans were refinances, where people were taking equity out of their properties. In 2020, this is what it's like. Or was like. Yeah, Dan.
In 2006, you could borrow up to 125% of your property's value as well.
Yeah.
For a cash out. Now you're limited to 80%. So that's helped quite a bit.
Yeah. So for those of you on Zoom, Dan said that, you know, back in 2006, you could cash out 125% of your value of the property. You can't do that anymore. It's at 80%. So that's taken a lot of things off the table also. So we're in a much, much better position now than we were back in the bubble years. And finally, this is really what is driving the market right now, and why things are so tight is because of housing inventory that's being pumped into the market, or lack of it, by builders. For those of you that work a lot in new construction, you know what it's like to get building permits and to get through all the processes, and it's not getting any easier. But you see what it was per decade there. Look what it was in the previous decade. I mean, we have a huge shortage of new construction. That's what's really driving this at this point in time. And the faster we can get builders back into the marketplace, the better. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, a lot of builders got burned. A lot of builders got burned in 2006, 2007. They overbuilt, and they had all these spec homes on the market, and they couldn't sell them, and prices were dropping like a brick, and they got burned. And now they're very, very reluctant to build spec homes. So I get that. I mean, if I was in their shoes, I'd probably feel the same way. But the other part of this, which I just alluded to a second ago, the building process and development process right now, in case anybody has never been through it, is just a nightmare, a morass of trying to go through all the municipal approvals and things like that. It's nothing short, you know, the people that go through this process, they have the strength and the stamina of Job. It's just incredible what they go through when they get to these township and municipal meetings, trying to, you know, get a development pushed through. And I've been there. It's not fun. It is not fun. And you have all the, and I don't want to get too political here, but you have all these people that come out to these municipality meetings, and I call them NIMBYs, and you probably have heard that before. They don't want anything built in their backyard. They want to be there, but they don't want anybody else to be there. So they'll come out and they'll look at a plan And the builder thinks, or the builder developer thinks they have a really good plan and they want to put something together and build a nice community. And somebody in the back of the room says, well, there's not enough swales here. And, you know, there's not enough sidewalks here, and this has got to be expanded. So all the municipal officials cave in and they say to the builder developer, come back next month and show us the revised plan with all these changes made to it. So they make all the changes, they come back the next month, and now Nancy's in the back of the room and she's a NIMBY. And Nancy says, well, you know, this is a lot of home. You know, can't we reduce the number of units in this area? You know, and then the whole meeting devolves into that. It's absolutely incredible what happens at these meetings. So anything that we can do as real estate agents, and by the way, when you get notifications from NAR to streamline the building process, please respond to those calls to action, because it's really important for us as an industry. RPAC, right. That's evidence right there, okay. So working with appraisers, this is the last part of the meeting. Our industry, I think everybody is aware, has changed dramatically over the last probably 18 months. We as agents have to learn to, number one, deal with it, and number two, we have to act a little differently. Whereas in the past, many agents never even knew who the appraiser was, didn't even bother with the appraiser. All they did is, well, the appraiser made the appointment to go out to the property and inspect the property, and that's all you cared about as an agent. I'm suggesting as an agent, you do things a little differently in this market that we're in right now. Now, I'm going to list some things that I think you should be aware of and provide for the appraiser to help them do their job. All right. There's some good appraisers out there. There's some less than good appraisers, and there's some less than good appraisers. How was that for being politically correct? You want to help out the ones that are less than less. Okay. So what can you do? So as a listing agent, these are some things that you do on a consistent basis when you are out there trying to secure a listing. Number one, you get it, you sell it, you do the inspections. Getting through that can be a difficult thing, and hopefully it appraises. So there's 4 basic things. This is how the market has shifted. In 2011, the most difficult thing you could do as an agent was to try to get the darn thing sold, because there was so much inventory on the market and prices were kind of going down and they were bottoming out. And we're dealing with a lot of short sales and foreclosures and things like that. So in 2011, this was really the thing that we were focused most on as agents. Now let's fast forward 10 years, and this is the most difficult thing right now. In addition, you know, getting the listings right now is not a small feat either. But really, appraisals are the biggest issue. You as an agent need to rethink how you're working, not only with your clients, but with appraisers. If you've never worked with an appraiser in the past, I suggest that you do things a little differently. So I'm going to give you some ideas of things to do when an appraiser sets up their inspection of the property. Once again, in the past, all you did was just say, okay, Jeff Cisco is going out to my property, you know, on Tuesday. And that's all you cared about. I'm suggesting you need to do more right now as a listing agent. You have to do more as a listing agent. So do's and don'ts when working with an appraiser. Some of these things you may know, some of them you may not know. First of all, you may communicate with the appraiser. There's a lot of input out there from agents that I hear that says, I'm not allowed to talk to the appraiser. No, that's not true. You may talk to the appraiser. Now, when I say talk to them, don't yell at them, okay? Talk to them. Do look at the appraiser as part of your team. And a lot of you are going, oh no. I'm looking at them as the devil right now because they're putting the kibosh on a lot of deals. Well, I think some of that responsibility falls on us too. Share your market knowledge backed up by facts. Here's what I need. I hear a lot of agents do this. Colleen's the appraiser, the bad person again. And I get on the phone with Colleen and I say, Colleen, are you out of your mind? How did you come up with a price like that? You know, this home is clearly much more valuable than what you put in your appraisal. In other words, I'm speaking emotionally, all right? She didn't care, okay? Now, she may not care with the facts anyway, but at least I think she would much rather have facts at her disposal than have an agent yell at her, which happens a lot. I wouldn't want to be an appraiser right now. So things that you don't want to do, demand that the appraiser come up with a certain amount. 300. Talk to the appraiser when they are trying to do their job. Do not show up at the property and walk around with them like a little puppy dog and say, look at that, look at this over here. Do you think this is okay? Let them do their job, okay? And don't wait until after the appraisal's done and then go back to them and say, Colleen, you don't know what you're talking about. Provide information ahead of time that will assist her in doing her job. That's what we have to do. And by the way, this takes time. More time. Yes, in this market, you need to invest some more time, okay? So what should you do? Some of the stuff you may look at and say, this is so basic. How many agents, just in your own mind, you don't have to raise your hand because you all have guilty consciences. How many agents now provide a packet of information for the appraiser? Most, you just get the notification of the appraisal and you sit back, do one of these, and you hope. Be proactive. Give them an MLS printout of the home. And by the way, make sure your printout is up to date. Provide them with the agreement of sale. Now, most mortgage companies will do this, but don't leave it to chance. Provide them with the agreement of sale and associated documents that are part or could influence value, like seller's property disclosure or some other things. They will appreciate that. Spreadsheet of the offers received. So I've seen probably just about everybody in this room use this form, which is up there. And, you know, you got 7 offers and you're putting them in the little columns and, you know, you're putting all the benefits of this one and the pros of this one and the cons of this one. Give this to the appraiser. Show the appraiser that you got 7 offers on this property and it's been on the market for 3 days. Show them what the offers are. Now, can you make this stuff up? Yeah, you can. But I don't think the appraiser is going to look at you and say, I think Colleen made this up. They may ask you additional questions, but there's no harm in showing the appraiser, if you got, you know, $50,000 over a list price, that you got 7 offers on this, and look at the other 6 were also over list price. That speaks volumes to an appraiser, okay? Property brochure. Once again, the property brochure has pictures and things like that on it. It just kind of backs up what the MLS printout says. Improvements that you've done to the property. Now, this is kind of a two-edged sword, because does your seller want to tell you about all the improvements of the property? Yes. Have them be part of the process here. Say, I need your help, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. This is the type of market that we're in right now. I know you're very proud of all the things that you've done to the property. It's great. You got it in spreadsheet, super. Fill in the date, fill in the amount, and give it to me, because I want to make sure it gets to the appraiser. By the way, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, because give this to the seller to do. The seller says, oh, Carol is worried about my value of the property. Carol is interested in all the amenities and attributes I have at this property, or in this property. And the seller can't say after the fact, But Carol, the appraiser was only here for 5 minutes. They couldn't have seen my new hardwood floors. They couldn't have seen this. Carol can then shoot back and say, remember that list you compiled for me? I gave it to the appraiser. The appraiser has all this information. They have it in a nice form. They have all the values that you paid for this when you put it in. That can't be an objection in the future. Now, it may be an objection, but at least you can tamp that down a little bit. Once again, does this take time to do? Yes. Is it worth it? I think so. Area amenities, what's close by? How many people have had an appraiser come to their listing that traveled more than 50 miles to get there and has no idea where the property is or what's around it? Don't assume that the appraiser knows what's going on around the property. Make sure you're pointing it out and saying, we have 5 world-class restaurants in this area. We have this, we have this, we have this. That helps the value. Comparative market analysis. Now, you want to revise your CMA, and you'll notice down here it says recent sales, current listings, and pending sales. And pending sales. And if you know what the value of the pending sales are, let the appraiser know it. And by the way, this takes time to form relationships with other co-op agents. I know for a fact that some of you in this room know a lot of agents, and you could call them today and you could say to that other agent, hey, I see your home over on Main Street is pending. Can you tell me what it's sold for? And a lot of agents will tell you if they know who you are and they have a good relationship with you. You can provide that data to the appraiser. Okay, do the CMA and get it to them. And by the way, if you're doing the CMA and you can't find comps, what should that tell you? That's what the appraiser's going through right now. Try to help them out. Is if you can't find comps, they're going to have a tough time finding comps too. Make it real, not only for yourself, but share this information, and I know a lot of you do, share this information with your seller and tell them, listen, we just sold this for $350. The highest comp that I got here is $310. Okay. RPR. I know some people have a love-hate relationship with RPR. They either like it or they hate it. There's usually nobody in between. I love RPR because you can play around with it till the nth degree and you can move things around. It's pretty neat. They have a function in there called refine value, which I love a lot. You can go in there and you can actually put in line items to refine the value of a property based upon what's in it. And by the way, how do I know what's in it? Going back to Carol, Carol sat down with her seller and says, give me that long list of the improvements that you made to your property. All right. So you can get in there, you can give the appraiser a nice report that is a refined value of that property. Homeowners Association information, if applicable. Now, don't give them the bylaws that are that thick. They don't care about that. But they do care about occasionally what can you and what can't you do to the property. Make sure that the appraiser knows that. Make sure that they know what the fee structure is. I can't tell you how many agents, set aside appraisers, how many agents come to me and say, what's included with that monthly fee? Now, it's supposed to be in the MLS, but do agents screw it up in the MLS? Yes, they do. So is trash included? Are taxes included? What's included with the monthly fee? Make sure it's outlined specifically for the appraiser so the appraiser knows exactly what is included with this. Surveyor plot plan, if you have it. Not all properties do, but if you have it, please provide it to the appraiser. A floor plan. There's more and more agents that are getting floor plans made. A lot of your photographers are doing floor plans for you. If you're having one made, please give it to the appraiser so the appraiser can see layouts and things like that. And finally, a legal description or deed to the property. Don't assume that they are going to pull this stuff. Yeah, they can, But, you know, it helps if it's all in one neat packet so you can just hand it to them, they can take it. By the way, the one thing I learned as I went through this process of putting this together is I pulled it from a couple of different sources. If you can provide this to an appraiser in Word format, not a PDF, it helps the appraiser, because most appraisers, if they read something that they like and they say, this would look good in the appraisal report, it's a lot easier to copy and paste into their program than it is to try to manipulate a PDF. So just a word to the wise, don't send something to the appraiser. If you already have it in Word format, send it to them in Word format. Forget the PDF, okay? So I'm suggesting that this stuff here be done if you're a listing agent. Yeah, it's more time involved after the property goes under agreement. But by the way, if you show the seller, if you go to the seller and say, look what I'm doing to try to get your home appraised, what's your seller going to think of you? Your seller's saying, this person's going the extra mile. They're going the extra mile to try to get me top value. If they can't get top value for your property after doing all this, they can't come back to you and say, can't you try a little harder? I mean, look what you've just done for them, okay? So we'll finish today. I saw this and I love this. 6 plus 3 equals 9, but so does 5 plus 4. The way you do things isn't always the only way to do them. Respect other people's way of thinking. So keep that in mind. Everybody have a great day.
I see people, they will, in MLS, put the price up to what they were at, what they got. Like,
The question on,
how much, or
yeah,
like, what the deal is?
the question on, for those on Zoom, Tammy Carlson asked, you know, once the property goes under agreement, they change prices and they do this and they do that. Let me tell you what this does to an appraiser. An appraiser looks at that and says, what the heck is this agent trying to pull? It doesn't help. I have no idea why agents are doing this. You can see the history of when you change all these things. It's not like 20 years ago when you change this stuff and nobody would know that it's being changed. I know if I was an appraiser and I saw Tammy Carlson change the price from this to this after it went under agreement, I'm saying, what is Tammy trying to pull? It just throws up a red flag for me. Just let it go. It's a good question. It's a good question. Anything else? Lots of food over here. Once again, for those of you that missed, Janice made zucchini pineapple bread this morning for the office. So please grab something on your way out. And once again, have a great day.